Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. So this is the final exam prep for SUSR. We're going to go through what we would normally do. So the first thing to highlight is that each of the questions that you do has to be done within the context of this. So you have to pay attention to the mark allocation, but in particular, you need to see what is expected because you should prepare your stuff based on that, and you should be able to grade yourself. I think each of the questions will have a 15, a 10, and a 10. So the first question is the major question, will require the most writing, but just see what we require. And the key thing about doing well is that balance between the theory and the application and having the right application for each of the theories that you give us. So that is where we start. Please make sure you have a glance at these rubrics. Insofar as the exam prep goes, I don't know whether you guys share this or you do it on your own, but I just think what I have here per slide is sufficient for you to do really well. But obviously, when you start writing these out, you might want to add in additional bits and pieces. Can I just say, please don't just learn the theory and then try and figure out what from the application, what from the case study applies. I would take the theory and write out each of the questions for the 5 cases that we are looking at. Remember, we've left out case 3 because we thought that would be the most ridiculous one to do. Right. So what I've done is I've broken the cases up per recording. So after each case, we'll stop the recording and then we'll restart the recording. So this is just the introduction. And then after that, we'll just go to each of the cases. So this is case 1. I just need to move this guy across here. Imagine I can't even get words out. Sorry, guys, I'm a little bit dosed up. I'm with Carenza, so it might not go as well, mind you. It might go perfectly. So to look at the questions, the first one, how Woolworths through their initiatives reflect the evolution of CR practices. I've adjusted the written bit that we were initially had put into the Word case studies and just updated it. So here is what we're looking at. So the evolution is really an indication of where we started with the idea that business has a role to play within society. You can see some of these notions, and I quite like the idea of the social contract. And the social contract is based around the notion that every business is part of a broader citizenship, and every business is this therefore a corporate citizen. So there's this expectation that sometimes is unwritten between the business and the organization. I think the real definition, or the initial definition for this came from 1951. It is really just our role as managers within the context of a broader and more complex world. So you could imagine this is post-World War II. We're seeing benefits in terms of economic growth post-World War II. And there's this expectation that businesses need to start adding in terms of what they get from society and start giving something back in terms of making a difference in communities and societies, etc. And then we moved a little bit further than that, and this idea of Elkington's triple bottom line, and we started talking about integrating people, planet, and profit. Just remember, if at any stage during this exam you have a wobble and you can't remember what to write, just throw in people, planet, profit. I will find marks. So the social component, looking after communities and our role in terms of taking care of communities, and then obviously the natural environment from a planet perspective, looking after, taking care, becoming sustainable from a natural environment perspective, and not doing harm. So doing stuff around pollution, etc. And then obviously we still focus on profits because we have to look after our shareholder interests. The quadruple bottom line became the fourth P, and this is where the fourth P was added, and this was for purpose, and it was around governance. It happened as a consequence of
So the audio just went off.
legislation in South Africa. Sorry, Boya?
So the audio had gone off, so we didn't hear, but it's fine.
My audio. Oh gosh, sorry about that. So the quadruple bottom line, the purpose was added into it, and that is about corporate governance. So now we have this idea of that we have to take care in terms of how we impact society, how we impact the natural environment, focusing still around elements for making sure that we look after shareholder interest. Right. So other bits and pieces, guys, and you can see the other parts from a South African perspective. I think the key one for us that you need to focus on around 76, and you can integrate it into your discussion as you build the timeline around the others, would be the Sullivan principles, essentially companies doing business in South Africa because of it being during apartheid times, they expect specifically communities, etc. And then where we are now, it's triple B, double E, and how CSR is even written into our constitution. So just remember, create your timeline and then see where we fit in with Woolworths. Remember, Woolworths is at a triple bottom line perspective. They look after each of the elements. There's enough evidence to support concern for their shareholders, concern for the natural environment, concern for communities, and then also concern for governance and ethicality. Any questions on that one? Can I move
No
to
questions.
question two? Okay, well, so just to go to the second one, here, the three elements of the sustainability paradigm, and we look at whether Woolworths, through their initiatives, essentially address those. Know that the sustainability paradigm will always be around the triple bottom line. And we know that the triple bottom line, as I said, is people, planet, profit. Now, obviously, you can talk about social issues. You can talk about the idea of the natural environment, but also look after the interests of your shareholders. We can see how those are integrated and just be able to discuss each of these from an economic perspective. Always will be about profits, profitability, so that we can look after our shareholders, pay dividends out towards our shareholders, make sure that the organization is worth investing in. Environmental perspective, it is about getting rid of pollution, not doing any harm from a natural environment perspective. And then from a social political perspective, it's looking after communities and the interests of communities. It's working in those spaces where government don't step in and NGOs don't work. And often this is where companies would step into the breach. To be honest with you, the reality around all of these is that they are non-negotiables, and we'll see that Woolworths addresses each of those. And then just from an ethical, philosophical perspective, utilitarianism. So here it is our focus on the outcomes. It is what we achieve. And the way we achieve successes in terms of utilitarianism is that we serve society in terms of the ultimate good by looking after each person's self-interest. So if every individual in society pursues their own self-interest, it will automatically give you an aggregation of good, that it will be this common good and will be for society at large. So look after each of your stakeholders, look after their interests, look after profitability, but also making sure that the knock-on effect is that we work for the greater good, the maximum good in society. Any questions on those? So I'll stop that recording for the first case study. Then we'll start the recording for the second case study.